At Pix and with our partners, we've spent the last year looking and thinking about critical infrastructure across the province, and those are really the systems that are the backbone to British Columbians' day-to-day lives. We're talking about roads, ferry service, the supply chains that bring food to grocery stores.
When we think about critical infrastructure, we're really concerned with public infrastructure. So we can think of anything from hospitals, schools, we can think about water, sanitation, water access, telecommunications.
Utility systems and electricity systems that hospitals depend upon.
Healthcare facilities, I think, do sit at the nexus of critical infrastructure because you need your roads for both patients and staff to access those facilities. You need power so that the lights stay on, so that your CT scanner works, so that the place doesn't get either too hot or too cold. You need your telecommunications for all of it.
Critical infrastructure is one of those things that people aren't thinking about day to day until it fails. I think that's part of the challenge, is that we're not thinking about these systems until it's too late.
In 2021, I don't know that folks were really bought in. You're doing a risk assessment and folks say, okay, this is interesting, maybe we should design more for the future, but were they ready to commit to it? No. And then we had a heat dome, and then we had the wildfires, and then we had the flooding, and the lower mainland was cut off from the entire country, and it became quite a bit easier to say, this is why we need to build climate resilient facilities.
The flooding, devastated Abbotsford and many parts of the province back in 2021 was an example of a compound event, right? That was an extremely heavy rainfall event from an atmospheric river, right? Which a term that was only invented about 25 years ago, right? But what made it so bad? It was the choices we'd made over many decades about how to treat the land, right? But also, there were forest fires earlier in the summer. We had a heat wave. And those heat waves and forest fires were as bad as they were because the previous winter in the spring had been a bit dry. That contributed to how bad the heat dome was. The heat dome then contributed to forest fires. The forest fires contributed to the slopes on the mountains being a little bit weaker, right, because of losing a lot of trees and roots and everything. And then that led to, when you get that rainfall, suddenly the impact is so much worse than it would have been otherwise.
In the fall of 2021, we saw what it means to lose those systems in real time during the atmospheric river that swept across the lower mainland. That's, I think, just one example of how these impacts can kind of ripple across. It's one or two series of roads and railways that go out, but these systems are so interconnected that it means millions of people can be affected if it hits some of those pinch points in the province.
We were physically cut off. And this is right after, this is still COVID times as well. People were really, really struggling with what that meant. And it wasn't just, oh, please don't go anywhere, as we physically couldn't. There was problems with goods. Again, Vancouver has one of the largest ports, if not the largest in Canada. Goods would come in from across the world and not be able to go to the rest of the country.
You're having your populations face these challenging situations that mean that they are racing towards your health facilities. Health facilities are pillars of the community and looked at during these trying times, and so then you get your already burdened healthcare system faced with patient surge. What if a facility is compromised? Or what if the already overworked staff have their own challenges to deal with as a result of climate events? Climate change, what's the best term? There's a lot of terms you could use here. One of them would be threat multiplier.
Those sort of things where it doesn't take much of a nudge from the climate to make something much worse is the stuff that concerns me, because it's hard. I can say, as a scientist, it's really hard to predict and characterize those events. which means that we need to plan for them.
The way that we design and build multiple types of infrastructure is if it's critical or other types don't take into account future climate projections. It's not how we do things. There is like a certain threshold that might get included, particularly within, I'd say, critical infrastructure if you're thinking about things like roads and bridges and that type of infrastructure, but it's never super far. It's never the worst case scenario. So a lot of our infrastructure is built to current scientific knowledge and really, I'd say, conservative projections, if they include climate projections at all.
Across BC and the rest of Canada, there are dozens of organizations and companies that manage and oversee these sets of infrastructure. And so, roads is governed by one body, electricity systems are governed by another body, ferries are governed by a transportation body, and that means that there's this very fragmented oversight and a lack of collaboration. And so there's not one set of information or knowledge, and that really comes to light when disasters strike. We don't have a single team of folks that have a sense of the whole network. We have individuals that have a deep sense of parts of the network.
When we think about making decisions around where to build new homes, we don't have any mandated requirements around climate for planning. So there's nothing that is triggered unless a local government chooses to actually include this around looking at climate risk. For me, it's like you can't, like, how are we not connecting those dots? You can't manage and run those critical infrastructure if people don't have somewhere to live. When you're asking a level of government to be responsible for making decisions around all new housing applications, but you're then not requiring them to think of the larger context, it can be really challenging. And I don't fault a lot of these communities because they don't have the resources or capacity to do this, but that's a challenge that we currently face. We're not where we need to be. Everyone in the province needs to be thinking about this.
The studies that we have seen show that it's about a 1 to 3% incremental capital cost increase to embed climate resilience measures and embed low carbon resilience measures into facilities. If we can get those in, what you're going to be looking at down the line is a facility that is better prepared, that perhaps avoids damages and losses and perhaps evacuations down the line, but also a more energy efficient facility, a facility that's better from an asset management and operation standpoint, and a facility that's better for staff and occupants.
Hazards continue to be seen in silos. So we tend to still focus on flooding, extreme heat, drought, and there isn't a ton of multi-hazard or compounding or cascading hazard work that's being done. The best, sort of hazard maps in the province or country are proprietary. They're owned by insurance companies. And so we need, I would say, the province to provide base level information. If you want local governments to make good decisions, they need information to make those decisions.
Building resilience today is about making sure that we're protecting people's affordability, safety, and prosperity into the future. And building resilient systems and infrastructure is core to that because those are the systems that people depend on. From the first moment that they turn on the lights to when they're preparing their dinner in the evening. We know that climate change is going to hammer many of our infrastructure systems and that they're not built for the hazards of today, let alone the storms of tomorrow. And so we need to think about how to better design them, to build redundancy, and the first step to that is understanding where we're at today and where our vulnerabilities are.
We're going to pay for these events at some point. We are going to pay for climate change, whether that's today or whether that's a little bit further down the line. The thing about it is that if you pay today, we're going to be paying a lot less, and we're going to be potentially saving lives along the way. And I think that that is worth investing in.